This podcast, Strange, Rare, and Peculiar, is for kind of those in the know about homeopathy, deepening your knowledge, bringing you more information about what you need to know, and maybe what you can leave aside about homeopathy.
Homeo what?
Homeo what?
All right, folks, welcome. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon.
Hello.
Denise, why are you looking at the organon of medicine?
We're going to start because, I often do that. It's my thing. But we're going to talk about some organon-related things today, for a change. But it was funny because I brought up my favorite Wenda O'Reilly organon.
What are those marks on it?
It has it has so many sticky notes in it, and it has notes with sticky notes with writing. It's got little things that lead me to all the different aphorisms from when I'm teaching. But then what I noticed as I was bringing it upstairs to where we record the podcasts, to the sound of the person who's cutting down a tree. Of course, there's nowhere to get away from the noise, so we apologize. Anyway, but what I realized is that on the cover of the organon, can you see? What do you see there?
I see a whole lot of indentations, like you've been hitting your head against it or something?
I used to use my organon for succussing LMs or 5th edition remedies.
Nice.
Isn't that amazing? And you can see it, I have the leather-bound copy.
The firm leather-bound book.
That's what it says, right? It says to succuss it on a firm leather-bound book. So I thought, well, then maybe it's going to get extra infused and potentized.
It's interesting. Folks, apologies for the sound of the chainsaw in the background, but that's what happens when you live in a tree zoo.
Yeah, we live in an arboretum, also known as a tree zoo.
Additionally, can you smell that smell?
Uh-oh. No.
You know what I just found?
Oh, no. What?
I just found, when the last time we did a podcast here was?
Uh-oh. Did you just find, an old coffee?
Yeah.
Or a tea with milk in it?
Yeah, from 2 weeks ago when we last did it here, because remember last week
we did it downstairs.
And
was there mold in it?
There's more mold than you can poke a stick at. It's like I was going to say a Pennsylvania investigation, but I mean a penicillin investigation.
Because I think that the nut milk grows mold faster.
Anyway, that's what the smell is. If you can smell something funny, folks.
Oh, gosh, I smell it now. Ew. All right, let's not talk about it. I don't really do well with a bad smell.
Today we're talking about, in a way, we're talking about us. And when Denise said, let's do a podcast, I might have said, let's do a podcast. I don't know, the first time. Then it became, we'll do it and then that's all good. But then we had to decide on a name, and the name was so easy because you definitely came up with the name, Strange, Rare, Peculiar.
Yeah.
And of course, that's deep in the mythology of homeopathy, that expression. Such a good expression.
Yeah.
But we thought about, what about a chat about, what does that mean? And have you ever thought, if you're a jobbing clinician, if you're a homeopath.
I'm going to translate. If you're working as a practitioner.
Thank you.
A jobbing homeo.
If you're a jobbing homeo, then you might, on a regular occasion, have paused to think about, did the client say something which is strange or rare or peculiar?
Or striking.
Or striking or characteristic.
Very characteristic.
Or very characteristic, yeah.
Okay, so just in a slight twist, plot twist. He's staring at me like, wait a second, we talked about this.
Don't do a serious plot twist on me right now.
No, it's actually an interesting plot twist. Okay, so let me begin by saying, I was going to say controversial, but it's not really controversial. We throw around the term strange, rare, peculiar, SRP, a lot. It's bandied about. So it sometimes is misappropriated to mean the weirdest thing you could ever imagine.
Yes.
Which is not really what it is. It's what's most striking, what stands out in the case, which becomes a very important guiding symptom, right? Yeah. Okay, and then of course you go from there to the constellation of symptoms and so on and so forth. And so the term strange, rare, and peculiar sometimes is, is it really that? Is it da-da-da? We're going to talk about that. That was the plan for today. Mm. Anyway, in doing so, in getting to that conversation, I grabbed my trusty Yazger's Homeopathic Dictionary, and because I'm a grammar nerd, I would much prefer this to be called Dictionary of homeopathic terms as opposed to homeopathic dictionary. The dictionary itself is not homeopathic.
Yeah, exactly.
This is what happens from Catholic school.
Well, where you become the grammar police.
Total grammar nerds. I mean, we used to diagram sentence. Like if there was a sentence diagramming Olympics, there was a time when I could have been a medal holder, I believe. I loved it.
So you're saying that by calling it the homeopathic dictionary implies that it's a very, 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 very small dictionary.
No, that would imply. Well,
But that's the lazy use of the word homeopathic.
right, because it's a modifier.
Right.
It's an adjective.
A dictionary related to the practice of homeopathy.
Yeah.
Good. Who got
Or
me
it
on?
defines terms within homeopathy.
Who got me onto this was my boss for a while. So 2 bosses up.
Boss. Oh, like the boss of your boss?
Boss.
I've never,
You don't say that?
No, but I really like it, and I will use
They say that in Malaysia all the time. You're like, when it's the day after tomorrow, they say tomorrow.
Yeah, that I know.
Yeah. So my boss, who was a Greek scholar and also who wrote Mosby's dictionary, medical dictionary.
Really?
So Dr. Nicholas Vardaxis was his name. He said, Alastair, you're doing a really good job, but please can you stop saying that? Because I was using a really, really, just as I'd always, Kent's lectures on homeopathic philosophy. No.
Well, yes.
Well,
Homeopathic philosophy, that makes sense, because the modifier is reflective of the noun.
Right. But so I just gave a bad example.
Okay.
But the example, because I was always talking about, the homeopathic dictionary or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. He said, please stop doing it.
I would have loved him.
I beg you. You would totally have loved him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
my nerd's showing early today.
So when I teach this, I actually very often guide students through a process of just talking about what's strange and rare and peculiar. And so I give a couple of examples, like the time that I was walking along as a 20-year-old, hungry and desperate in the streets of Paris, and I saw for the first time ever a man in a pink bowler hat. And I go, well, is that strange, rare and peculiar?
No.
Well, exactly.
Not for him.
Good. Very good. And the conversation, then I talk about another experience I had on that same trip when I was 20 in Naples. I'll never, ever forget this, but a guy who was lived on the streets, no shoes, like I watched him come towards me, and his trousers were all shredded, and he was in pretty desperate straits, but he was carrying the largest bouquet of red roses. Oh, it was incredible. Just that image, I'll never ever forget it in my life. It was like
that's one of those things you can imagine. A black and white photo of this tattered person with the only thing in color would be the red of the roses.
Exactly. Just hold on to that. That was my experience.
Oh my gosh.
So, and then we start talking.
Okay, wait, hold on. While we're in Italy, though.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I said to you, when a parent is mad at their child, and all they have to do is show you a hairbrush, would you think that was strange and peculiar? If someone came into your clinic and they said, yeah, so in our house, if my mother showed me the hairbrush, I knew I was in trouble. You would think that's bizarre.
Well, I just know Italian mothers.
Okay. Because
and so that's just entirely normal.
And if they don't have a hairbrush nearby, it's the wooden spoon. They would just take the wooden spoon and they would show you, and you'd run, right? So, sight of the wooden spoon makes her run.
Yes.
Right?
Discipline, received, yeah.
Right, so it's not strange.
No, in that context, no, it's not.
So this is the little plot twist, which is not. I think it's actually where you're going.
Yeah.
Is I grabbed the dictionary of terms used in homeopathy.
Yes.
As opposed to the homeopathic dictionary.
Yeah.
And I was going to just look at J. Yasgur's definition of the strange, rare, and peculiar symptom, and I realized that it lives within a larger group of definitions under the term symptom.
Symptoms, not people. Oh my God.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
Exactly.
Oh, that's where you're going.
Weird, right? Homeopaths treat symptoms, not a whole person. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Sacrilege. Okay.
In other words, we love eccentric folks wearing whatever they want to wear.
Yeah,
it's not It's not anything.
You know what I say to that?
What?
You do you.
You-
You do you. Far be it from me to judge. I've worn some get-ups in my day.
Yeah, but honey, when it's, when I ask you a question, we're going out somewhere, and I say, look, is my bum too big in these pants? And you say, you do you.
You do you.
That's not that useful.
But you know what? There have been times when I've looked at you long enough for you to say, I think I should go and I should
I'll just go
rethink
and
this
change.
outfit.
Yeah.
Anyway, so can I just tell you what's in this list?
Yeah, please.
Some of them I haven't really heard of. I haven't heard of the way that these terms. No, I haven't heard of these terms used. However, when I read the definitions, I was like, oh, of course.
Right.
Okay, so there's symptoms, and then afterward there is absolute symptoms, under which there are, and now indented, like you would in the repertory for a subcategory, accessory symptoms, accidental symptom, alternating symptom, associated symptom, auxiliary symptom, basic symptom, characteristic symptom. And then characteristic symptom, see peculiar symptom.
Ha-ha.
Ha ha. Chief complaint, clinical symptom, common symptom, complete symptom, concomitant symptom, confirmatory symptom, contingent, I'm only on the C's, contingent symptom, contradictory symptom, determining symptom, eliminative symptom, etiological symptom, first symptom, food symptom, functional symptom, general symptom, guiding symptom, incomplete symptom, keynote symptom, late symptom, leading symptom, local symptom, main symptom, major symptom, minor symptom, new symptom.
Can I make a suggestion? Let's use that for our next exam. That's brilliant.
Okay. Don't tell any of the students.
Isn't that brilliant? Just the list and then say discuss.
Objective symptom, oldest symptom, particular symptom, pathogenetic symptom, pathogenomics, I can never say this word. Mnemonic symptom.
Pathognomonic symptom.
Thank you.
All right.
Say it again.
Pathognomonic.
You got it. Pathological symptom, peculiar symptom, physical symptom, psychic symptom, rare symptom, recent symptom, satellite symptom, secondary symptom, strange, rare, peculiar symptom, subjective symptom, symptom complex, symptomatic treatment, and so on. That's a lot of symptom.
Why did you just stop at the S's?
Because he doesn't have any more.
He ran out of puff?
No.
S is not exactly the end of the alphabet.
So what's an X symptom?
An exercise symptom?
How about a V?
A xylophone symptom?
A xylophone's good. How about a V symptom? Don't do it.
Very, very important symptom.
And a Z symptom. He's cracking up. You can't see. See, the thing is that Al laughs kind of quietly, and he does it sort of like my Aunt Hope used to do. She would.
It hurts.
Like that. Al does a bit of that, and I'm just an irritating laugher. But it's not my fault because you crack me up. Okay.
So the point of that's interesting. So therefore, in preparation for this lecture, you just found something you didn't know existed. An excellent list of, quote, symptoms, including strange, rare, peculiar, and it refers you back to?
Well, there's strange, rare, peculiar. It's interesting because many of these, as you probably have figured out by now, are one and the same.
Sure.
Same word used for different things. So when you get to peculiar symptom, he has in parentheses strange symptom, rare symptom, contingent symptom, characteristic symptom. And then listen to this. One often serving to point directly to the curative remedy. Get this. Alone, these symptoms may be of no special value, but can take on great value by paying attention to their modalities. In other words, that which makes something better or worse. They are symptoms of an unusual nature and in turn give the case a pronounced flavor of individuality. I like that because, I like to use food language, food metaphors. For example, thirstlessness during fever or a migraine, or you might say a migraine, worse coughing, better by hot drinks. You don't say migraine.
Migraine.
It may be a symptom which is not necessarily...
It's spelled M-I, as in not M-E-E.
Look, I was just giving you the benefit of the doubt.
No.
Because I honor your
You
language. You be you. Those symptoms which... Oh, hang on. It may be a symptom which is not necessarily related to the chief complaint. See, I think that's really key. And that's one that throws a spanner in the works for newer students. Do you like that? I adopted one of your phrases.
Well, my preference would be spanner in the pigeons, but
Great.
that's just mixing,
as soon
your
as I
metaphors.
get it, yeah. It's like a bag of worms. Okay, so that's really interesting, isn't it? And then it goes on one more thing. Those symptoms which vary with the individual and are not essentially pathonomic of the disease, but always of the individual patient, and that comes from Boerke.
Yeah.
So this idea, the spanner in the works, is about the symptom which is not necessarily related to the chief complaint. And I think that this is a very fair moment of confusion for newer students or practitioners,
Yep.
where when you really think about the logic of problem solving, one would assume that the chief complaint will always drive you to the remedy. And I think this is where sometimes the protocol folks will, in a simplistic argument, always win. Because the logic would be, if you have X, you should prioritize that X in your analysis. When in reality, the stranger and peculiar, or the most characteristic symptom, even if it is seemingly, and I'm going to say seemingly, not unrelated, but seemingly unrelated to the chief complaint, it is related to the chief complaint in actuality, because it is part of the totality of symptoms of the disease for which
And is therefore
homeopaths,
hierarchically much more important.
because of its characteristic nature.
Right.
I'm choosing my words carefully.
Yeah, you are. I think I've got a good example of it. And,
Then I believe you should share it.
well, I don't think I will. I'm gonna share it in a month, depending on what happens.
That's not fair.
No, but it's a little teaser.
You're going to forget. Why don't you write it down?
I've written it down.
Oh. Okay. So, just before we go on, because when you open a book and you're looking at, I'm looking at the symptoms and all that follows, and then I just look over to what's on the facing page. And one of the definitions. So there's a long definition of Swedenborgian, yeah, and then there's swarthy.
Oh, what a great word.
How would you define swarthy?
Like a dock worker. Like Marlon Brando on the waterfront.
So he just says having a darker sunburned complexion.
You're kidding. Oh, it's all about being bulked up and
Burly.
being gorgeous. No, burly's even worse than that.
Well, you see, I would think that was a concomitant to swarthiness would be burliness.
Really?
Potential. But by this definition, I would be swarthy.
You are swarthy.
Thank you. I think.
I prefer sultry for exactly what you just talked about.
But sultry, at least in homeopathic terms,
Oh, no,
or in
no, I don't
terms
mean in
related to
homeopathic terms.
homeopathy,
Yeah.
refers to the weather.
No, for me it means that you get tan. What did you say? I get
Tan in a warm room.
you get tan in a warm room.
I do.
Yeah.
You can watch me tan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's incredible. As opposed to me, I just turn pink.
And then you explode.
We are quite a sight in Florida.
Oh my goodness, it's hilarious.
Yes.
Anyway, but sultry, while we're talking about it, has to do with
Damp, hot, wet weather.
damp, hot weather. So what we would say is like humidity
Yeah.
is sultry weather.
Yeah.
I really like that. It makes me think of like being in New Orleans in the summer.
Yeah.
And I think of it as having a good smell associated with it.
That works.
I would hope.
So keep going. Or at least is that it?
It's never it with me.
So, well, I'm just alerting you to the fact that,
I have a clinic in 20 minutes.
yeah, that one.
So I think, though, what we're on to here is there are a number of things. One is understanding the definitions of words and their meaning in homeopathy, especially if they are different than what we might think. It's like we need a decoder ring. So swarthiness and sultriness have very specific meanings based on the point in time in which they were introduced into the literature.
Yeah.
But also when it comes to symptoms, how to understand a case is to understand the symptoms. And to understand the symptoms is to understand totality. But no matter how you slice it, the most characteristic symptom is the one that has, technically, according to Hahnemann and what we've seen, what we see in practice, is sort of the most important to guiding the practitioner toward a remedy, which goes very much against pathological prescribing and the use of, say, a clinical repertory.
So you'd say, I'm now going to use decoder ring for you.
Thank you.
Because you're saying, it's time now to choose a remedy. I'm going to take into account the affinities in this case, but the fact that there is a characteristic symptom hierarchically is more important than that. And so as long as all of those are covered off...
it's got to cover the affinities.
Yeah.
And it needs to cover the strain, fair, and peculiar. So on Tuesday night with the class that calls themselves Taco Tuesday, it's the only class name that really stuck. We asked the cohorts to name themselves in the beginning of this academic year, which we thought would be a fun exercise, but one which proved, other than the Taco Tuesday folks, to be fraught and caused much consternation.
Yeah.
Anyway, the Taco Tuesday folks, this is the point in their curriculum, so coming to the end of semester 3, where we have basically a Q&A session on supervision. So in other words, their supervision process, reflection on cases that they are being observed on in their clinical supervision process, or the clinical process in general, because not everyone is already in independent supervision. So it was great. And sometimes I get nervous because I feel like it's going to be like a quiz show where for 2 hours they're just going to ask me questions and I have to answer them. But there were a couple of great questions, and I believe it was Christy. No. Oh, was it? Someone asked, it was Mel, who said, do you have any advice on how we write up remedy differentials in our case analyses in supervision or in a submitted case?
Nice.
It's like such a brilliant question. And it led to this really robust discussion about sort of what is hierarchically important in the differentiation process. And what we came to was, of course, the affinities are very important. And then, of course, we had to discuss how you get there. But the affinity is basically, is the remedy known to solve problems in a particular physiological expression or bodily system or pathogenetic output? I hope I used that term correctly, because now that I've said pathogenomic, I've confused myself. Anyway, but we talked about sort of the hierarchy, and then we talked about how in the differentiation, what you're looking for are these ways in which the remedy covers the most characteristic symptoms. And not just, because sometimes you'll find if you're looking at materia medica that there's, how can I say this succinctly? You might find in a repertorization that there's a remedy that does this one funny thing that your client is presenting, but the remedy might not cover anything else in the case. Well, you can't go with that, obviously. So your selection of the remedy is based on sort of all of these factors, and at the end of the day, your weighted statistical analysis of your repertorization has to be done over and over until it yields the kind of result that shows you the perfect combination of affinity, characteristic symptoms, and so on and so forth.
Makes perfect sense.
Oh, good.
Well, it makes perfect sense, but I've been doing it every day for 34 years. And so it doesn't make perfect sense to every student.
Well, no, and that's why it takes a lot of clinic.
And that's why so often, so if you're talking about supervision, the student is coming back with, we can't go with this remedy that I know you want to give.
Right.
Because it doesn't cover what I think are the important features of the case, and so therefore we're going to give sulfur. Because that does. Or lycopodium or metromyriaticum.
And see, this is where the simillimum mythology has really turned all this on its head. Because, well, it's not even that so much as the essence idea of a remedy. Where that essence idea, in other words, the pulsatilla patient has, has a roundish figure, has, a little bit more meat on the bone. They sit by the window, needing the fresh air, craving fats, and da-da-da, and weepy, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, and there's a lot more to it than that. There's that exercise Jeremy Sher does that I love. It never gets old, where he reads all the symptoms for what you think is pulsatile, and it turns out it's nux vomica, or vice versa.
Yeah, right.
So it's like the multifaceted expressions of remedies. So, for example, when I love teaching Nature Muriaticum, because everybody thinks of Nat Mur as like putting up the wall, for protecting themselves from a long ago grief. When in reality, Nature Muriaticum can have incredible violent anger. They're all the sort of sexual aspects that, the rubric shameless in bed is sort of an underrepresented aspect of, the what is possible within a Nat Mur picture. So, it's like, how do you parse these things out? It takes a lot of conversation and a lot of work.
So it does. Now, I think part of this discussion, however, also needs to get down to some granular facts. If a client, for example, had 3 days ago lost all of the skin on their fingers due to some accident that happened in the shed with some chemicals.
Can I give a little context to this? So while we've been sitting here, for the times when I'm speaking a lot and Alastair isn't saying anything, it's because he's very busy doing sort of small surgeries on his fingers and he's so intent that I can tell I need to just keep going. But what happened was the other day, so Al makes this concoction. It's a weed killer, yeah?
It's an organic weed killer.
Yeah, and it is Epsom salts and
vinegar
and water.
Dawn dish soap.
Oh, and dish soap. I forgot about that. And puts it into a spray bottle and then sprays it in the cracks in the paths. It's a weed killer.
Oh, yeah, and, direct on weeds.
And then what happens...
And they're all dead right now. Boom, all of them are gone. It's fantastic.
Tell them what happened to you.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about the gloves. Yeah. And I managed to have bought 45% vinegar when I think it's supposed to be 5% vinegar. Anyway, and I also didn't have, for another accidental reason, I didn't have a set of gloves that would actually just use the spray bottles really accurately. I had those giant... I used those giant ones that you bought me for Christmas. They're brilliant. But they're like serious winter gloves. And so I couldn't actually operate the spray bottle. And so I just went, no, I won't use them at all. And so I got Epsom salts and vinegar all over my hands as I'm using these spray bottles for an hour. And then I mowed the lawn intensely.
Oh, I can verify that.
For a couple of hours after that.
And now you look like you've just come through the zombie apocalypse.
So all of the skin on my fingers disappeared.
It's terrifying.
It blistered amazingly. But can I get back to the point? So better for no skin on fingers, better for holding on to the cold steel of the chair that I'm sitting on. Like, better for ice. Like, I want ice on that. Nice. Ice ameliorates immediately, right? That's a characteristic symptom.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so when we're talking about strange and rare peculiar, can we just be clear, it's not about pink bowler hats.
It's not the weirdest thing you've ever seen.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because I used to teach, if you've never heard it, it's strange, right?
But like...
And it's that was so subjective and weird as a definition, because it means that, if you never left the house, then everything would be
weird.
Would be weird and strange. That clearly is not the answer. But there's got to be something extremely characteristic about the strange, rare, and peculiar symptom.
Can I read Hahnemann's definition? I'm using Wenda O'Reilly's translation.
Please do.
And I'm not going to say what the aphorism is, because we did a little social media thing where you're supposed to guess the aphorism. So,
preferably know it. Don't guess it. No. Just know it.
In the search for a homeopathically specific remedy, that is, in the comparison of the complex of the natural disease's signs with the symptom sets of the available medicines, in order to find among them an artificial disease potens that corresponds in similarity to the malady to be cured, the more striking, exceptional, unusual, and odd (parentheses, characteristic) signs and symptoms of the disease case are to be especially and almost solely kept in view. These, above all, must correspond to the very similar ones in the symptom set of the medicine sought, if it is to be the most fitting one for cure. The more common and indeterminate symptoms, parentheses, lack of appetite, headache, lassitude, restless sleep, discomfort, etc.,
Boring.
are to be seen with almost every disease and medicine, and thus deserve little attention unless they are more closely characterized.
Ignore them.
Yeah. So it's a very interesting thing. Now there has been, I've heard a few people recently talk about, they take, I don't know that I'd go as far as to say umbrage, but they're concerned about some of the translation here. And I know Wenda's working on another translation. When I talk to her in the coming weeks, I'm going to ask her particularly about this, if she has found in her translation, if this is something that she's planning to tighten up. Anyway, but I think, what was interesting to me during my research of 19th century homeopathy was that they really relied on the most characteristic symptoms, as opposed to what we have been taught in the Kentian realm about sort of the essence.
A 12 rubric repertorization that represents each feature of the case, that sort of thing.
Yeah, but also the idea of the essence or the central delusion, where I think it's hard for students. We tend to shy away from that. Well, it's easy in the very beginning, but that psychologizing of homeopathy, I think, can make it more difficult when you really have to look at the sort of complex nature of case analysis.
Yeah, totally.
I like that. I think there's more to talk about on this subject.
Really?
How about if we do another podcast at a certain point?
If our podcast wasn't called Strange or Peculiar, it would be called Characteristic. That's it. Just characteristic.
Uniquely characteristic.
Uniquely characteristic.
I like it.
I interrupted you. What were you going to say?
I forget. No, I like the idea of looking at the different terminology around symptoms and thinking about those. So, for example, accessory symptoms. Right? Our students are very confident in using that language in determining, after a person takes a remedy, if something that comes up is important enough to lead to a remedy change, if it indicates that it's a proving symptom, or if it is just a result of the imperfectly fitting triangles. Yeah. And then having the conversation about how that impacts our understanding of the dynamic disease. So maybe we should do a little bit of, just kind of talking about the language and the nature of symptoms, because I think, as we're really talking through sort of this idea of what how do we get to a good homeopathic remedy, that those are some of the really core facets.
Love it.
I do too. Hey, I've got a good clinic coming today. It's an acute clinic day. And the last time I checked, there were 3 cases. And I think it's going to be interesting. I enjoy the acute internship, teaching acute clinic. I'm
glad you do.
I thought you said you loved it.
I love it the day, but I find all the rest of it somewhat stressful.
Well, the following up, But
you're also a little late there. So you got to get a wriggle on.
Oh, I do. I have to go right now because they're probably waiting for me.
That's it.
All right. See you.
See you later. Bye. Take care, folks. Have the best week, and we'll see you later.
AHE is changing the face of homeopathy education by raising the bar through rigorous academics and unparalleled clinical training delivered live through the soulful use of cutting-edge technology. AHE prepares its students to become fully rounded homeopathic practitioners from anywhere in the world. Apply today and ask about the early enrollment discount at ahe.online.